Hello everyone. Well, here we are again for our next instalment of Bad Dad by David Walliams. And this is called The Smell of Old Books. If you remember, Frank's dad had been a little bit mysterious about some sort of a job he was going for, and Frank was with his Auntie Flip. Now, Auntie Flip wasn't Frank's aunt, she was Dad's aunt. Flip was short for Philippa, and she prided herself on being from the posh side of the family, even though there wasn't one. The lady had the smell of old books about her. That was probably because she was a librarian. Auntie Flip wore glasses with glass thicker than in a shark's tank. Her idea of an evening's entertainment was to bring a stack of her own unpublished poetry books over and read them out loud to the boy. Auntie Flip had written many volumes of poetry, and here's just a small selection. Frank hated poetry. Flip would read him her poems about clouds and gooseberries and rainy days and bird songs and talcum powder. For Frank, listening to them was torture. That night, the boy was annoyed that he was left alone with the woman while his dad went out for his really exciting, top-secret, couldn't even tell his own son meeting. Doing what he was told, Frank put his pyjamas on and then popped his head round the door of the living room. "Good night, Auntie Flip," he said quickly before turning to go.
"Not yet, it isn't," chirped the lady.
"Sorry?"
"As a very special treat, young man, I'm going to let you stay up late."
"Cool."
"Yes, you can stay up late so I can read you some of my poetry."
This was definitely not cool.
"I know how much you like it," she said.
"I'm really tired," lied Frank, pretending to yawn, and he stretched his arms out for good measure.
"You won't be in a moment, young man, because I have a surprise for you. Do you like surprises?"
It depends. What is it?"
"If I told you, it wouldn't be a surprise, would it?"
The boy thought for a moment. "Is it a poetry-based surprise?"
"Yes! How did you know?"
It's just a wild guess." The lady clicked open her handbag and took out her leather-bound notebook. She held it up in her hands as if it was a holy relic. Carefully, she turned the first page.
"The first one this evening is a poem I've written all about you, Frank."
Somehow, the thought of a poem about himself made Frank squirm. It was a similar feeling of unease as the time when Frank ate some sausages in the school canteen that hadn't been cooked properly, and he had to run to the toilet as he could feel his bottom was about to explode. Auntie Flip started making strange sounds with her mouth. It was like the noise of a braying horse.
Nay, nay.
Next, she began making humming noises in an ear-achingly high-pitched tone. It was like someone running their fingers round the rim of a glass. Frank put his fingers in his ears. "Is this the poem?" he shouted over the din. Flip looked at the boy as if he was bonkers.
"No, I'm just warming up the voice. Right, I'm ready. This one is entitled simply Frank, and it is by me."
And here's a selection. Let's see.
"My lovely little Frank, I want to say thank you for being you. The super-duper son of my only nephew. You are a boy who spreads joy, like a butterfly who dances on the breeze, or a hummingbird singing in the trees, or a dolphin leaping through the sea, or a bee buzzing with another bee. You bring happiness to my heart like a freshly baked apple tart with lashings of piping hot custard. Much nicer than adding some mustard. I know it was strange to mention mustard, but it's the only thing that rhymes with custard. Please, oh Frank, don't ever get old. Stay forever young and bold. So, my poem draws to a close. The one thing, don't pick your nose.
The lady's eyes were glistening with tears at the sheer beauty of her own poem.
Well,
she asked through sniffs. Her eyes searched Frank's face for approval. Well, what? Asked the boy.
Well, what did you think of your special poem?
I thought the poem was very...
Yes?
Frank was old enough to know sometimes you have to tell a little lie to save other people's feelings. Poetic! It was a very poetic poem. The lady was overjoyed.
Oh, thank you so much. This is great praise. Any poet wants their poems to be poetic. So, one down, 99 to go.
I need to go to bed.
Are you sure?
Absolutely. I need to go to bed right now.
How about I'll read to you A Love of Mauve?
I would love to hear it, but
or some lines on my foot cheese.
I really couldn't.
You're going to adore Ode to a Puddle. Plop, plop, plop. The rain goes plop.
No! I mean, no. The lady looked hurt.
What do you mean, no?
I mean, thank you, but no. I just feel so emotional after listening to that beautiful one you wrote about me. Auntie Flip nodded her head.
Of course. I forget the raw power of my verse. I'll bid you good night.
The lady opened her arms to give the boy a hug. Reluctantly, the boy paced towards her. She always squeezed him too tight. Said Frank, as he could feel the air being squashed out of him.
Sorry, I'm not good with hugs.
The lady had never been married, nor, to Frank's knowledge, had ever had a romance. He guessed she hadn't had many hugs in her life. Good night, said the boy. I'm off to sleep now. And that was another lie. A big lie. Now we're going to carry on. The next section is called Death by Poetry. Escaping from the flat was something Frank had done many times before. Years ago, Frank would sneak past his mum every Saturday night to watch his father race. Back then it was easy. Frank would prop up his pillows on his bed under the duvet. That way, if Mum bothered to get off the phone and poke her head round the door, she would think her son was lying there fast asleep. Now, there were no pillows, duvet, or indeed a bed. Since the hard-faced men had come, the boy had slept on an old lilo that always deflated during the night like a long, slow trump. Frank had to come up with a new plan, and fast. If he was forced to listen to one more of Auntie Flip's poems, there was a very real danger that he would spontaneously combust. The boy made a life-size dummy of himself by stuffing scrunched-up newspapers into some old pyjamas. Next, he placed the dummy on top of his lilo. Finally, Frank had to pick his moment to make his escape out through the front door. From his bedroom, he could hear that, surprise, surprise, Auntie Flip was composing a new poem in the living room. She was reciting it out loud as she wrote, "Oh, tall, proud tree, I see much of you in me. Although I don't have leaves or branches for that matter, I am not made of wood. But other than that, I could be a tree. And oh yes, I don't have bark. Oh dear, let me start again. Oh, tall, proud tree." The living room was at the end of the hall, so there was every chance Auntie Flip would see Frank if he tried to make a dash for the front door. After a short while, the boy could hear the lady shuffle down the corridor. This was his chance. Frank opened his bedroom door a tiny bit and put his eyeball up to the crack. Auntie Flip was closing this toilet door slowly behind her.
Oh, no! The debt collectors, they've taken the loo seat! Frank heard her explain. I will have to hover.
There was no way of Frank knowing if it was a number 1 or a number 2. How could he know? Such a thing was a private matter between Auntie Flip and Auntie Flip's bottom. A number 2 could take a long time. For some people, hours, even days. Whereas a number 1 could be over in seconds. So Frank scuttled across the floorboards as quickly as he could. The hard-faced men had taken the carpet too. And he made it towards the front door. There he planned to wait for the noise of the flush to cover his escape. Disaster. The toilet door opened again. Click.
I don't believe it! No loo roll!
Frank was crouched in the hallway, but scuttled back to his bedroom just in time. With her bloomers still round her ankles, Auntie Flip scampered sideways like a crab back to the living room.
Now, which poem can I sacrifice? She asked herself. They're all masterpieces, let me see. Oh, yes! Ode to a Poached Egg. Yes, that can go.
The boy then heard a page being torn out of a book. Flip then scuttled back to the toilet and closed the door. Frank crawled back to the front door and waited for the sound of the toilet flush. Clunk. Flip pulled the chain, but nothing happened. Clunk. Again, nothing. Clunk, clunk, clunk.
Oh, goodness me! The chain snapped, she explained.
The boy then heard effort noises coming from behind the toilet door.
I'll just have to hook my bloomers over the lever and flush.
Success! Frank opened the front door and shut it behind him as quietly as he could. Look. The lift was always broken in that block of flats, which was a pain when he lived on the 99th floor. Fortunately, Frank had devised a cool way of getting down the seemingly endless staircases. He'd found an old laundry basket, and with felt-tip pens had painted it with the colours of Queenie, red, white and blue. All he had to do was sit at the top of the staircase and then let gravity take its course. Whoosh! Well, we'll go straight on with the next episode, The Flying Vicar. In no time at all, Frank was speeding down the staircase and pretending he was a real-life racing driver. Thunk, thunk, thunk. The washing basket juddered as it hit each step. Frank had to hold on tight or he might be thrown out. Whoosh! Just as in a banger race, there were plenty of things to bash into. It was hard to steer a basket, but Frank did his best to lean left, then right, narrowly missing a broken-down washing machine, an upturned shopping trolley, a flock of pigeons, a TV that had been kicked in, a delivery driver carrying a stack of pizzas, a crate of empty bottles, and a tiny old lady who was being dragged up the stairs by 3 little dogs. One person was not so lucky. That was the local vicar, Reverend Judith. Unfortunately for her, Frank took a bend far too fast and bash, slap, bang into the lady. Boosh! Ah! She cried as she shot up into the air. Look! A flying vicar! The lady did a somersault, her first, and landed on her bottom. Splat! Fortunately for Frank, Reverend Judith was such a nice lady that she was the one who apologised. So sorry for being in your way, she called out. I'm so sorry, Reverend Judith, shouted back the boy, and he continued to speed down the staircase. "Oh, I hope to see you at church on Sunday," added the lady, hopefully. The vicar was always at the tower block inviting the residents to her empty church, even though they never came. Frank felt sorry for her, though not sorry enough to get out of bed on a Sunday morning and go. Whoosh! The washing basket rattled down the last few steps and skidded across the concrete. Whee! Eventually it came to a stop. The boy hid the basket behind some bins and then dashed off in the direction of the local pub, the Executioner and Axe, it was called. As he peered in through the grimy window, Frank saw the pub was heaving. This was the grown-up world in all its glory. Men were arguing, women were fighting, and everyone was drinking. The pub was so noisy, it hardly seemed the most sensible place for a top-secret meeting. Try as he might, the boy couldn't spot his father anywhere. Just as he was about to give up and head home, Frank heard muffled voices coming from the car park. The boy turned round to see some men sitting, talking in a white Rolls-Royce. The Rolls-Royce stuck out not just from its bay because of its size, but also because it was the kind of expensive car you never ever saw on an estate like this. The boy couldn't make out the men too clearly as the car was full of cigar smoke. Frank edged his way around the other parked cars to get a little closer. He could just see the outline of his dad sitting in the driving seat, but who were the other men? And what was he doing in this hugely expensive car? To try to hear what was being said, Frank climbed up onto the roof of the plumber's van parked next to the Rolls-Royce, but all he could hear was the occasional word. It sounded like the men were talking quietly so as not to be overheard. The boy had come so far. He wasn't going to give up now. So, as delicately as he could, Frank stepped from the top of the van onto the roof of the Rolls-Royce. He lay down on the top so he could hear what was being said. This would turn out to be a dangerous mistake. What if we get caught? It was Frank's father talking. Get caught doing what? Thought Frank as he lay on the roof of the Rolls-Royce listening. If you drive fast enough, no one will get caught, replied a man. I have done all the research. I have plans of the inside. You will be in and out in 2 minutes. I ain't sure about this. It's much bigger than you told me. Just let me pay you back the money I borrowed from you. Please. I've heard that one 1,000,000 times before from you. I will find a job. There are no jobs in this town, especially for someone who has to hop to get around. There was a low rumble of mocking laughter from the two men in the back seats. You love your boy, don't you? Said the man. Frank gulped. He was talking about him. Yeah, of course I do. I love him more than anything in the world. What's he got to do with all this? I wouldn't hate for anything to happen to him. You leave my boy out of this. Then do what I say. If you ever do anything to hurt my boy, you'll do what? Take off your false leg and kick me with it. The two men in the back laughed again. All right, said Dad. I'll do what you say. But just this once. One job and then I am done.
That wasn't too hard now, was it? purred the man in the front seat. So, Gilbert, I want you to show me that you can still drive, like in the old days.
I can still drive, all right. Leg or no leg.
Then show me.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Well, hold on tight, replied Dad. The huge Rolls-Royce engine revved up. Brum, 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 brum. Then the back wheels spun furiously and clouds of smoke filled the air. Frank couldn't help but splutter at the smell of burning rubber. The boy struggled to his feet so he could jump back on the van parked beside the car, but Dad was much too quick. The Rolls-Royce raced off into the night, with Frank standing on the roof. Well, that's it for today. We shall see what happens to poor old Frank on the top of that Rolls-Royce next time. Until then, you take care, and I'll see you very soon. Bye-bye for now.